all probably received my email earlier with this meeting agenda. So call to order, we are officially called to order. We're gonna actually go over vision statements. This is something that we've been talking about in my class, and I want us to kind of discuss and perhaps adapt as a PLC group moving forward. And then I'm gonna do my action research presentation on conferencing and writing. Super exciting. And then we'll talk about next steps and questions at the end. I'll be presenting. Lauren, you're keeping time. Hannah, you're taking notes. And Beck, you are doing tech. Yes? Cool. Okay, here we go. So, for our vision statement, this is something that we've been talking about a lot in my classes. It's important as a group of teacher leaders and PLC group to kind of have a forward-thinking vision. It talked about in my class that there's a difference between a vision statement and a mission statement. So mission statements are what we want to be accomplishing now. Vision statements are what we want to be accomplishing in the future, kind of within the next 5 years. And so I spent some time really thinking about it and thinking about what we've discussed before as a PLC about like what our goals are. And so this is the vision statement that I've came to. You all are welcome to help me change this. So here we go. I am creative, adaptable, and approach all tasks with love and grace towards myself, my students, and my colleagues. I empower my students to become the best readers and writers they can be. I help my students learn that they are capable of doing difficult things. My mind is set towards growth and collaboration with others.
Nice.
I like it. Okay. Is there anything we need to like fix or change or reword?
I don't think so. I don't see anything. I think that covers everything.
I think that kind of covers our goals as a group.
Yeah.
You know, we try to be on the same page a lot, and I feel like it's kind of encompasses, especially the giving grace to the kids. Lord help them. We love them, but Lord help them. Okay, so if you all are okay with that, we'll adopt that kind of as our official PLC vision statement.
Yes.
Especially as we're getting ready for next year and all of the changes that are happening in our department. Yeah. So we'll go with that. So okay. Cool. Thanks. All right. So now we're gonna move into my presentation today. Like I said, this is for my EDOL 637. I think I would know this. 647 class that I'm doing. It's about teacher leaders and PLCs. And so we were told to figure out a problem that is happening in the classrooms. And so I know that a lot of our classes kind of work the same. So this is the problem that I've identified as one of our kind of issues. So students are not improving during our argumentative writing in regards to their body paragraph construction. We have beat our heads against the wall over and over and over again because they are just not getting it. Overwhelmingly, students are not incorporating evidence and elaboration in support of their claims. So not even necessarily just structure of body paragraph, they're just not incorporating that evidence and elaboration in the way that we have taught them to do it, that they need to be doing it, and overall their arguments are kind of weak because of it. And we've given direct whole group instruction, we've given some small group instruction, and we've had kind of that historic data of our last couple of years doing the same kinds of things, and we're just not getting there. And so students have received some written feedback from peers and teachers, because that's been kind of our MO, especially this year because we've had all the weather that's caused us to not be able to do as much one-on-one work as possible, but largely they seem to be ignoring all the feedback that they're given. I don't know about y'all, but I've had a lot of times where I've told a kid, hey, you need 2 pieces of evidence in your body paragraph, and they come to you the next time and they're like, what do you mean you have 2 pieces of body paragraph? Okay. So overall, I think you all agree with that. That's what I'm seeing. Beck, I know in our classes that's what I'm seeing. Okay, so we need a solution. So I went ahead and did some baseline data. You know me and my charts. I love them. So students were given a score based on the KSA argumentation rubric that we're all using across the board. Out of 4 for their essays, we're largely ignoring category 2 on counterclaims because that wasn't something that we had really taught explicitly when I took this baseline data, because this project's a couple weeks in the making. So overall, this is kind of my block schedule. So my first block and third block are kind of on par, which those are our co-teach classes, hitting right around the 2.0 average. My second block is my high group, so they're 2.6. 2.29. So overall, my kids were scoring at about a 2.14 before anything was started on this research. As for a solution to the problem, I did some research, and to combat the lack of response to written feedback, I decided to utilize a combination of written and verbal individualized feedback. What does that mean? It means writing conferences. So this will take place through the implementation of those conferences with each student, and Bet Glenn has been helping me out because she's been doing architecture. She's awesome. Because she's awesome. So there are a couple articles that I wanted us to look at. This is kind of the justification behind what I'm doing. So if you all will pull up, I emailed them to you. Article 1. It's called it's called The Trajectories of Student Writing Feedback Attitudes. I got a minute to look over this, kind of read through the abstract, kind of go through what's there, and then we'll talk about what that really is discussing.
Receive like just overall feedback
Better. So,
which is interesting.
And there was a whole part at the bottom where it was talking about kids in 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 7th grade. They looked at kind of this cross section, and of course, as they get into middle school,
Right.
They are not as receptive to feedback. I know that's a shock to us. So my big takeaways from this is that students typically respond better to writing feedback from their teachers than their peers. And then immediate writing feedback is much more effective than delayed feedback, which we knew. But I know in my class, at least this year, especially with all the weather, especially with the sheer number of students we were looking at, I have not been that great about getting that feedback to them in a timely manner. It's been a struggle with kind of our writing cycles to get it in before we get to that next essay. So then I went digging some more. So if you'll go ahead and look at Article 2 as well. This article does look at things through the framework of an L2 student, which is a student learning a second language. And it was all about writing conferences. And so I'll give you a second to look through that, especially, I know Beck and I have a lot of ELL students this year, and I know you all have some as well.
About our EDOL kids is that they want the conference.
They do.
Yeah.
And so this article really supported that. It gave a lot of data supporting that verbal feedback in the form of conferences is one of the most effective ways to improve writing, especially with those L2 learners. They benefit the most from verbal feedback because written feedback is not always, they understand it and they're able to ask questions. And I feel like this kind of goes along with our SPED population as well. Oftentimes they don't understand the written feedback. And so, especially looking, if we're bringing those gap kids up, we need to be tailoring what we're doing to help to the kids that are gap. So, there's an action plan, because there's always a plan. So here was my action plan for the first set of interventions, because we were supposed to do this project in like a trial and then a second trial. So for this first one, I said I would meet individually with each student for approximately 3 to 5 minutes. I'll provide feedback on their writing piece, specifically in regards to body paragraphs, because that's what we're really focusing on. Providing students with both a score on the writing rubric and our checklist. And you all have those body paragraph checklists as well. To determine which elements they had, didn't have, kind of broken down by paragraph. What are we looking for? What are we missing? We'll discuss each element as it's scored and talk about the specific things in their writing piece that kind of justify that score. I'm going to give students time to ask questions about the verbal feedback and further review of the written feedback, because a lot of times we'll go ahead and jot notes before I have that conference. And then I am going to give students an action item to work on for their next writing piece. And like if you've ever seen my papers, I don't really write it across the side of the rubric. Here's your action item. So I did that. And I did that before our second essay. I know. So
That's impressive.
We have some good blocks.
Yeah.
So between first block and third block especially. So our lower groups, the ones that need that intervention the
Because
most.
those are your coaches.
Because those are my coaches
Right.
blocks. First block jumped about 0.4. Third block jumped about 0.4 as well. And just a reminder for those who are not involved in language arts, like that's a big jump.
Yeah,
but we're looking at a 4.2.
That's a really good improvement.
Second block and fourth block only improved each by about 0.1, which is not the most ideal. So kind of conclusions from this, we know that students did successfully increase writing scores across the board. Everybody benefited from it. Conferences were most effective in first and third, which are my co-teach classes, highest concentration of those SPED and ELL kids. All this is improved, but I can't promise, if we're looking at true data analysis, I can't promise that second and fourth block improved because of conferences and not just because we did another practice. Like, the statistical differences there I don't think are enough to justify that is the reason they improved. They didn't get worse, but they didn't I don't know that they necessarily improved because of it. So further intervention is necessary, but you don't want to just ditch the conferences because they are working in certain classes. So the solution to that, okay, there we go. The solution to that is, in addition to the written and verbal feedback and individualized conferences, instead, students are going to have to come up with their own action item. So making them actually think about and process what that next step needs to be, especially as we're looking at our gen ed students being able to kind of verbalize that. And of course, we can still offer assistance to our ones that struggle coming up with that. So there is an article, that's article number 3, if you all want to take a look at that. Take a time, I'm going to kind of give you my takeaways, and then feel free to peruse this and come back to me if you've got questions. So students don't always internalize their feedback, especially when it comes to written feedback. They just don't actually take that in. So going through a reflection process on the basis of feedback given can help to increase their writing gains, as we would want them to. So here's the action plan for intervention 2. You'll notice the first 4 sections are the same. The change comes here in fact. So I'll have students create their own action item to work on for their next similar writing piece through a writing reflection activity on a Google form. Okay? So here are the results for that. So you'll notice that first block and third block continue to grow by about 0.2, 0.3. So not quite as big of a jump this time, but still on the way that we needed them to. Second and fourth block did make the jump that we needed them to this time. So the second block, they're getting there.
Yeah.
They're right there on that 3. I've got a couple that are struggling. That may come in some writing bootcamp intervention for those students. But fourth block is definitely pulling kind of back up ahead where I need them to be with everybody else as well. So reflection overall here. The self-reflection activity in conjunction with the conferences made a significant impact across all of my classes. Second and fourth block made those significant gains. First and third block continued to improve. So what are we looking for next steps? So in the future, with this particular group of students, I'd like to continue utilizing individualized conferences with intervention 1 and the self-reflections in intervention 2. So I'd like to add that to it. I'd like to implement in our other writing classes, girls classes if we can, to see if the results can be duplicated. Because as always with something like this, there's a chance that this was some kind of other outside influence. So if we can kind of track that data across 3 classes, we would have a little bit easier of a chance kind of understanding what's going on. As we look forward to designing our writing instruction for next year, we need to consider adding this element earlier in the writing process. And kind of that brings me into my last part. Is there a more streamlined way to do this? Would it be helpful to do some kind of like journal tracker where they're tracking each of their like action goals so they can see them written out for each one? We've got writing like portfolios. It might be something we could glue to the front of theirs, and so that every time we add a new piece, okay, write your action item for next time as we're going back over that. So anybody else have thoughts, questions, concerns?
Or even like if it was inside, they didn't even write their score. That way it would be on the front, you know.
Right, so that others can see. That's a good
Someone
thought.
would be embarrassed or.
Right.
Or if it didn't jumble, but at least
Yeah.
they're
They
seeing
can see a
about
little bit.
staying steady or.
Yeah.
I do know we have to alter that a little bit for your kiddos. I
Yeah,
know that they
yes.
don't, like their scores don't jump,
Right,
but
yeah.
their ability jumps. It just they start real low and then
They get to
we're
the high.
we're getting to the high low. We do have some kids getting close to that 2 level, especially some of our coaching kids. They're getting there. All right. Anybody have any questions, concerns, other things that we need to bring up for